The road to Kavampur curled like a sleeping snake between two hills, narrow and cracked, forgotten by the world. Trucks avoided it. Tourists never found it. Even the postman called it cursed during monsoon season. But for the people of the village, it was lifeline and routine. That morning, just after the mist lifted and the first vegetable carts began their slow roll toward the highway, everything stopped. It wasn't just that a full-grown elephant had collapsed across the road. It was the way he fell. Like a mountain finally too tired to stand. He was massive. Ancient. His skin was covered in dust and blood, cracked like dry riverbed stone. One of his tusks was broken at the tip, jagged and raw. Deep gashes laced his side, some still weeping with fresh blood. Most shocking of all, a wooden hunting spear was buried deep into his flank, near his ribs, still vibrating with each ragged breath. The villagers screamed when they saw him. Some ran. Others froze. The older ones made signs with their fingers, crossing their chests and whispering prayers. The elephant groaned, a horrible, drawn-out sound like the earth splitting open. Then he roared. The trumpet wasn't like anything the people had heard before. It wasn't the regal bellow of a beast announcing its power. This was pain. Ancient, unbearable pain. The kind of sound that makes birds scatter and grown men drop tools and cover their ears. Children wailed. Dogs bolted. Chickens flapped over fences. And for a few long seconds, even the wind seemed to stop. But one boy didn't move. He stood at the edge of the crowd, barefoot, with wide, unblinking eyes, holding a small cloth bag slung across his chest. Veer. He was 10, though his face carried something older, not the age of years, but the age of silence. He had been deaf since he was 3. A sudden fever, high and cruel, took his hearing in one night. No one knew why. The village doctor called it a mystery. The real doctors were too far, too expensive. His parents had learned some sign language from a teacher who visited twice a year, but mostly, Veer learned to watch. He watched lips, hands, animals, leaves, shadows. The world still spoke to him, just not in sound. While the others recoiled from the elephant's roar, Veer stood perfectly still. Because he couldn't hear the roar at all. Instead, he saw. He saw the tremble in the elephant's massive chest. The quiver in its left foreleg, twisted and swollen. The spear. The bruising around the eyes. The foam near the mouth. And something else. Something small and terrifying and easy to miss. The elephant wasn't angry. It was terrified. Guards were called. They came in a battered jeep, shouting orders and blowing whistles that Veer couldn't hear. One man waved a long stick. Another pointed at the spear and shook his head. "No one go near him," someone yelled. "It'll kill you. He's gone mad. Must have come from the reserve, poachers maybe. God help us." Veer didn't move. He didn't need their words. He saw the panic. He felt it ripple like heat in the air. But he also saw something no one else was looking at. The elephant's eye. Clouded. Wet. Flickering. It wasn't looking at the crowd. It was looking straight at him. Their eyes met across the distance. One full of confusion. The other full of pain. And somehow, they held. That was when the crowd noticed Veer. "Get him back. Whose boy is that? Grab him. He'll get trampled." But he didn't move. He didn't flinch. He just stepped forward. His mother saw him then and ran, signing desperately. "No. Stop. Danger. Come back." He didn't answer. He stepped around the guards, around the screaming vendors, past the cow that had bolted into a ditch and the man trying to haul it out. He walked straight toward the elephant. People gasped. One woman fainted. A man dropped his phone trying to take a video. The guards shouted warnings. But Veer heard nothing. All he saw was the way the elephant's breathing had slowed when he stepped closer. The twitch of the trunk. The subtle, almost imperceptible lift of the ear. The closer he got, the quieter the world became, as if the jungle itself was watching. 10 steps away. 5. 2. The elephant didn't move. Didn't trumpet. Didn't flail. Veer crouched down in front of him, just outside the reach of his trunk. His knees sank into bloody dust. He could smell the fear in the air, but not from the beast. From everyone else. He studied the spear. It was too deep, and pulling it might kill him. The guards had said that already. But something had to be done. The elephant made a sound then, not loud, but low, guttural. A vibration more than a voice. And Veer felt it. In his chest. In the soles of his feet. A kind of pleading. So he did the only thing he could. He reached out his hand. Gently, slowly, he pressed his fingers against the rough, trembling skin of the elephant's trunk. It was warm. Beating. Alive. For a second, just one, the elephant didn't react. Then its trunk curled, barely, like a twitch. Then again. Then, unmistakably, it moved toward the boy. Not to strike. To touch. The trunk wrapped gently around Veer's wrist, then loosened again, as if to say, I know you're here. The crowd fell silent. No one spoke. No one dared. Because they were watching something they didn't understand. Something impossible. The massive dying creature had made peace with a child. A deaf child. A boy who couldn't hear its screams but had heard something else entirely. The elephant closed its eye. Not from death. From trust. And Veer sat beside him. Without fear. Without sound. Only presence. The elephant didn't move for hours. The heat of the sun shifted from gold to pale gray as clouds began crawling over the hills, and the smell of coming rain mixed with dust and blood. People came and went. Some stared in silence. Others argued in low, nervous tones. But no one got close again. No one except Veer. He stayed beside the elephant as the sky darkened. His small hand occasionally touched the giant's trunk, gently, just enough to remind the beast, I'm still here. Every now and then, the elephant responded. Not with movement, but with breath, a long, tired exhale that made the leaves nearby tremble. The guards weren't sure what to do. He should be pulled away, one muttered. It's not safe. He's deaf, said another. He won't listen. He doesn't need to, Veer's mother signed to them harshly, standing just behind the makeshift rope boundary. He understands more than any of us. The local forest department had been notified, but they were hours away, trapped in bureaucratic indecision and one broken jeep. A vet was supposedly coming from the district town. But night would fall first. And the elephant wouldn't last that long. He was weakening. Veer could see it. The rise and fall of the chest became shallower. His mouth hung slightly open now. There was mud on his tongue, and flies gathered where the wounds had cracked open. The spear still jutted from his flank, angry and unforgiving. But Veer stayed. He didn't speak. Couldn't. But he didn't need to. He laid his bag on the ground and pulled out a small folded cloth. Inside were broken biscuits and half a banana. He had packed it that morning, hoping to eat them at school. Now, without hesitation, he placed the banana at the edge of the elephant's trunk. The trunk didn't move. Veer didn't expect it to. But he left it there, a quiet offering. By dusk, the rain began. It came slowly at first. Fat, lazy drops tapping against leaves and foreheads, and then faster, like the sky had finally lost patience. People ran for shelter. Umbrellas opened. Plastic sheets were pulled over carts. But Veer didn't move. He sat cross-legged in the mud, beside the great beast, rain soaking his hair, dripping from his eyelashes. His mother tried to go to him, but the guards held her gently. No sudden movement, they warned. If the elephant panics, he might roll. He could crush the boy without even meaning to. She wanted to scream. But instead she signed furiously into the dark, even though Veer couldn't see her. Come back. Please. Please. But Veer stayed. The elephant stirred once, a full-body twitch that sent a wave through the mud and made everyone flinch. But then he settled again. and his eye, clouded as it was, found the boy's silhouette in the rain. They watched each other, the two of them, soaked and silent. By the time full night arrived, the crowd had thinned. Only a few torches flickered beneath umbrellas. A local farmer brought a tarp and a blanket, handing them to Veer's mother without a word. She gave them to the guards, who carefully approached the boy. One placed the tarp above him, driving sticks into the mud like makeshift tent poles. Another gently laid the blanket over the boy's shoulders. Still, he didn't move. He just rested his hand on the elephant's side, right where the ribs rose and fell. The vet didn't arrive until past midnight. She stepped out of a government jeep, slipping slightly on the wet road, muttering curses under her breath. She was young, not what anyone expected, and wore her hair in a tight braid under a plastic hood. She took one look at the scene and blinked. "Where's the injured person?" she asked. "Not a person," said one guard. "An elephant." She turned to the shape in the darkness. Then her eyes caught the boy beside him. "Who's that?" "Veer," the guard replied. "He's deaf. He won't leave." The vet approached cautiously. When she saw the wounds, she stopped in her tracks. "Oh," she breathed. "Oh no." The spear wound was deeper than she thought. His leg was swollen, possibly fractured. The burns around his shoulders hinted at fire. And now, in the cold rain, infection was beginning to spread. His breathing was slow. She opened her case. "Sedative first," she said aloud, mostly to herself. "If I can keep him calm." But the guards shook their heads. "He doesn't trust us. He only lets the boy near." The vet knelt, watching Veer from a distance. "I need him to help me," she said finally. "Can he understand?" His mother stepped forward, fingers flying. "This woman wants your help. To save him." Veer looked up, then nodded. Slowly, cautiously, the vet approached, holding out a syringe the size of a flute. "He needs to stay still while I clean the wound," she said softly. "If he panics, we lose him. I'll need time." Veer reached out and placed both hands on the elephant's trunk again. It was barely moving now. The beast was fading. Veer leaned forward, pressing his forehead gently against the elephant's skin, and closed his eyes. A minute passed. Then the vet moved in. She worked in the dark, in the rain, kneeling in mud beside thousands of pounds of sleeping powder. She cleaned the burns, dressed what wounds she could, and applied pressure around the spear. "I can't remove it yet," she whispered. "Too dangerous. But I've slowed the bleeding." Hours passed. The rain slowed. Dawn threatened behind the hills. And the elephant lived. Not healed, but breathing. And the boy beside him, still there, soaked to the bone, eyes half closed from exhaustion, finally looked up as the vet touched his shoulder. "You kept him calm," she said. Veer blinked. "He trusted you," she added. He didn't answer. But he looked down again at the elephant, and gently, slowly, traced a finger over the trunk's scarred ridges, like reading a secret. Then, for the first time, the elephant moved again. A full breath. A curl of the trunk. And a sound, not a scream, not a roar, just a quiet, low rumble. The vet smiled. "That's good. That's very good." And Veer, though he couldn't hear it, felt it. A vibration in his chest. A message only he could read. By morning, the village was wide awake and full of whispers. Children peered from doorways. Women paused their washing. Men gathered in uneven circles, eyes shifting between the road and the forest. The elephant was still there, alive, barely, but no longer the threat he once seemed. His breathing was steady now. The rain had stopped, leaving the air thick with steam and the earth soaked black beneath him. Veer had not gone home. He lay curled beside the elephant, covered in the same blanket the vet had given him, his back against the beast's massive shoulder. A strange peace had settled between them, the kind of stillness that could only exist after a night of shared survival. The forest officer arrived just before noon. His jeep was clean, his boots polished, his shirt too crisp for the setting. He had a thick mustache and a clipboard, and he walked with the confidence of someone used to being obeyed. He did not smile. He took one look at the elephant and grimaced. "This is not acceptable," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "This is government land. That animal is government property." The villagers gathered, cautious. The officer turned to the vet, who was checking the elephant's eye with a flashlight. "What's the status?" She looked up, tired. "Critical. But stable for now." "Can he be moved?" "No. Not yet. He's too weak." "The spear. I read your report. You said the elephant was suffering." "He is." "Then the order stands." There was silence. Then someone asked quietly, "What order?" The officer didn't hesitate. "He's to be euthanized." It hit like a slap. The vet stood up, stunned. "What?" "No. That's not what I recommended. You said he was in pain. You said his wounds were severe. You said he was aggressive before the boy approached. If a wild elephant is wounded and a threat to public safety, the law gives us authority to end its suffering." "He's not a threat," she said sharply. "Not anymore. He let me treat him. He let the boy sit with him for hours." "A deaf child, yes," the officer scoffed. "You're willing to risk more lives on that? What if the animal panics again? What if he charges the school next week? He can't even stand." "All the more reason. We're wasting time." The crowd murmured. People looked at one another. The older ones shook their heads. Some nodded quietly, unsure. The officer turned back to the jeep and gave a signal. 2 more men stepped out, rangers with rifles. Veer's mother stepped forward fast, her hands signing furiously. "No. You will not touch him. He is not dangerous." The officer ignored her. "Clear the area," he barked. "We'll make it quick." But no one moved. Then the vet stepped between the rangers and the elephant. "You'll have to shoot me first," she said. Her voice shook, but her stance didn't. The officer stared at her. "Doctor. He trusted us. He trusted that boy. I will not let you break that. He's an animal." "No," she said. "He's a survivor. Like all of us." The rangers hesitated. And then, without a word, Veer stood up. He was covered in mud. His clothes were soaked and stained. His hair stuck to his forehead. But his eyes burned. He didn't shout. He didn't plead. He walked slowly in front of the elephant and stood between the beast and the guns. The villagers held their breath. One of the rangers lowered his rifle. The officer frowned. He doesn't even understand what's happening. But he was wrong. Veer turned and looked at the crowd, then at the elephant, then at the sky. And then he reached out and touched the elephant's trunk, just once, gently. The elephant stirred. A breath. A low rumble. And then, impossibly, he moved. Just a little. One front leg. Then the other. And slowly, painfully, the elephant lifted his head. A gasp rippled through the crowd. The vet stared in awe. The rangers lowered their guns. The officer took a step back. Veer didn't move. He knelt down and placed both hands on the elephant's forehead. The elephant was awake. Alert. A little stronger than the night before. Still bleeding, still weak, but not ready to die. Not yet. The vet spoke, her voice shaking. "If he's trying to live, we have to let him." The villagers began to step forward, quietly, slowly. The tea farmer who'd offered the tarp. A young girl with flowers in her hand. A teacher. An old man who once trained oxen. They surrounded the elephant, not close enough to crowd him, but near enough to make it clear, they would not allow this to end like that. The officer looked around. He saw the faces. He saw the boy. And he knew. There would be no bullet today. He muttered into his phone, then waved at his men. "We'll reevaluate in 48 hours. Then he left. The jeep's tires sprayed mud as it turned and vanished down the hill. The villagers stayed. And Veer turned back to the elephant, brushing his fingers gently over the beast's cheek. The elephant made a sound, low and soft, almost like a sigh. That night, the villagers built a shelter. Nothing permanent, just bamboo and cloth and rope to shield from wind and rain. They brought buckets of water, fresh fruit, warm rice, and herbs. The vet made plans to bring more medicine. The blacksmith offered to forge tools for lifting if needed. The schoolteacher wrote a letter to a wildlife NGO in Delhi. And Veer? He slept again beside the elephant, his head resting on its massive shoulder, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Someone brought him soup. Someone else brought new sandals. He smiled once, barely, but his mother saw it. She cried quietly, behind a curtain of firelight, and whispered thank you to the darkness. Because for the first time in years, her son wasn't just different. He was necessary. Days passed. Then weeks. The elephant's name, unofficial but unanimous, became Ujya, meaning the one who cannot be defeated. He began to heal. The spear was removed by a specialist team that arrived from the state capital, working in silence while Veer rested a hand on Ujja's trunk to keep him calm. The wound, deep and brutal, didn't kill him, though it tried. The burns faded slowly, the swelling in his leg reduced, and the forest began to carry not the smell of blood, but of rain and earth again. Veer stayed with him through all of it. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. Ujja understood silence. He moved more each day. First just shifting his weight. Then one step. Then two. It took time and patience and pain. But by the end of the third week, he stood without support. The village changed too. What had begun with fear turned to wonder. Children brought sugarcane. Elders nodded at Veer as if he had crossed some invisible threshold into their trust. A painter came and made a mural on the school wall, a boy in shadow beside a massive gray figure, under a rain cloud turning to sun. No one dared film it. The moment felt sacred. But not everything was perfect. The forest department returned. Not with rifles this time, but with forms. Proposals. Options. Ujja can't live on the roadside forever, one officer explained. He needs to be relocated, to a sanctuary, or reserve. With his condition, he may not survive alone. But he also can't stay here. The vet agreed. Veer didn't. He clenched his fists when they spoke. His mother tried to explain, signed slowly, carefully. They don't want to hurt him. They want to help. But all he saw was the same old thing, someone coming to take what mattered. He stood beside Ujja as they talked, one hand on the elephant's shoulder, the other balled at his side. The vet crouched in front of him. He needs space. Trees. Others like him. I promise, he'll be okay. Veer's eyes narrowed. Then he did something unexpected. He walked away. Just a few paces, into the trees. Then he turned and looked at Ujja. He tapped his own chest, once. Then pointed into the forest. Ujja watched. Veer repeated it. Then sat down on a stump, arms folded. Waiting. The crowd watched in silence. Ujja didn't move at first. Then, slowly, as if every motion was considered, he stepped forward. One step. Then another. Toward the boy. Toward the trees. Toward freedom. By the end of the hour, Ujja had left the road. The officers didn't say anything. They simply nodded and began organizing the next steps. Ujja would be relocated, but not far. There was a nearby protected forest zone, and with enough support, it could become his permanent home. A new path would be cleared, a small enclosure built only for medical purposes, and if he grew stronger, he could live free. But only if he could walk there himself. And so, for 7 days, Veer led him. Not with a rope. Not with chains. But with quiet. Each day they walked deeper into the forest, a little farther from the village. The vet followed at a distance. Others helped clear the way. But it was always Veer who walked ahead, a small, barefoot shadow among trees, while Ujja followed with slow, thunderous grace. On the 7th day, they reached the edge of the new sanctuary, an open glade near a river, surrounded by old banyan trees and silence thick with promise. Veer stopped. He turned. Ujja stepped beside him. They stood there for a long time, no crowd, no cameras, just mist and wind and the creak of branches above. Then Veer pressed both hands to the elephant's side, one final time, and stepped back. Ujja rumbled low, a sound like distant thunder. Then he turned and walked forward, alone. The months that followed moved fast. Ujja adapted. Slowly, carefully. He explored the forest with quiet curiosity, often returning to the edge of the glade as if waiting for something. Other elephants were introduced. Some avoided him. One young female stayed. He grew stronger. Veer went back to school. He sat near the window now. He smiled more. His teachers said he was quieter than ever, but more focused, as if listening to something no one else could hear. His mother saw the change too. He didn't speak of Ujja often, but sometimes when clouds gathered low in the sky, he would walk to the edge of the forest and sit on the same stump, just watching the trees. Listening. 1 year later, during a dry season festival, a horn sounded from the southern ridge, sharp and short, a warning blast from a ranger. A boy had gone missing near the river bend. Panic spread fast. The sun was beginning to set. The path to the bend was rocky and steep, and the boy's parents feared the worst. A search party gathered, torches lit, voices raised in panic. But before they could go far, a ranger shouted, "Look!" From between the trees, just beyond the edge of the sanctuary, a shape emerged. Ujja. He was walking slowly, carefully, and beside him, small and muddy, was the missing boy. The child clung to the elephant's leg like a vine. His foot was bleeding. He had fallen, he said later, and couldn't climb back up. He had cried for hours. And then the elephant came. He didn't speak. He didn't roar. He just stood beside the child, until he was brave enough to walk again. The village never forgot that moment. They stopped calling Ujja a wild animal. They started calling him guardian. Years passed. Veer grew older, taller, his hands more steady, his eyes still searching. He joined the sanctuary team, learned from the vet, studied animal behavior through gestures, not textbooks. He never heard Ujja's voice, but he never needed to, because one morning, while feeding the elephants, he felt a rumble in the earth again. Low, warm, familiar. Ujja turned to him and lifted his trunk. Veer reached out, and their hands met.